What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be kind of like a series of videos because I'm going to do it in steps. That way I can show you guys each step, and then if you guys ever got to do this at home, it'll be easier for you rather than trying to squeeze each part into one video that's going to make the video way too long, as opposed to being able to have a shorter video and step by step and be able to watch one video and then be able to do it and move on to the next one and the next one. That's what I'm gonna do in a series of videos. So today what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this countertop and we're gonna cut it to length. Okay, so here's the countertop and here's the tools that we're gonna need to do it. We're gonna need a speed square, some painter's tape, a couple of clamps, a tape measure, a pencil obviously, carpenter's square, and then a circular saw. This is the one I use 90% of the time because it's cordless. It doesn't have to be a cordless one, it can be corded, but the key to this is, if you can see right now, the blade that's on there is a framing blade, and we don't want that. We want to have a fine finish blade. So I went with the 7 1/4 42 fine finish blade, which cut it really nice. Real quick, what I want to tell you guys before we measure the countertop to what size we're going to cut it. So as you can see, this comes out to here on this end, and same thing in this end. So from there to there is 30 inches, but we're not going to want to cut the countertop at 30 inches because when we go to put the laminate ends on there, we got to put these strips on there, and we want that flush with the end of the countertop. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the countertop 1 inch longer on each side, which instead of cutting at 30, we're going to cut it at 32, maybe 32 1/8, just to give us a little wiggle room, so that when we set this countertop down, these ends aren't going to hit here. They're going to come over that, and the whole countertop will rest over the top of this. You can see how it has the lip here, okay? And then we're gonna have that strip in here too, so we wanna make sure underneath side isn't gonna hit here or hit there. So even though the cabinet is 30 inches, we're not gonna cut the countertop to 30 inches, we're gonna cut it to 32 inches. Give it 1 inch on each side. Okay, I got my first mark there, and then I got another mark there. And the reason for that is because I'm gonna take this tape and tape over where my line is. I'm not gonna cut it on this side, I'm gonna flip it over. But I wanna tape it first, so this way when it's cutting, there's less chance of this laminate chipping. My line is about right there. So, same thing on this side. So we got that mark taped off. Now we'll flip it over, make our marks on the back side. Okay, so I flipped it over, I did the same thing. I made 2 marks at my measurement here and here. And here's what, now this is where the framing square is gonna be put into play. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take this and set this and line it up with my 2 lines. This way I get a nice straight line. I got this tied up against the back of the countertop, and then this right on both of my marks, so that I get a nice straight line. And then we'll mark it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this line we made with the framing square and put the speed square up to the speed square. There's just no gamble. You're gonna be, as long as you hold it tight to the material, it's gonna be perfect every time. So we'll hold it tight, make a mark there. Now what we'll do is take the speed square and hold it this way up to that line and make a line up here. And here, same thing, okay? We got our end of our line here. We're gonna hold our speed square tight up against here to where our line is, hold it there, and make our mark. Just a couple things I forgot to mention. What I did was I took and added another sawhorse here and then taped this part of the countertop down, because when you're cutting this, you don't want the countertop to break off at the end. So this will prevent that from having this taped down, because otherwise this thing is just resting in the air, and it has a chance of, when you get to the end there, just breaking off, and you don't want that to happen. So now that I got one clamp on, I want to show you guys this. So what you want to do is you're going to want to line up the blade with where your line is. And then once you do that, then you can move this scrap piece over so that you're running your saw along this guide to give yourself a nice straight cut. If you don't do that, your cut's gonna be all over the place. It's gonna wanna be like this. And unless you're really, really confident with cutting a straight line all the time, you want this line to be perfectly straight. I'd recommend doing this. That's what the clamps are for, and the scrap piece of wood. So I got both of my clamps down now on my guide piece, and then we'll go ahead and cut the countertop. I won't be able to explain this when I'm cutting, so I want to explain it now. There's gonna be two tough cuts with it. One is gonna be the first one here, because you're gonna have to keep the saw tight against here, and then cut this first, then come down and cut this straight across, okay? The second weird cut will be this one right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just come straight across. Then what I'm gonna do is reset myself, tip the saw up, and then come straight down on this line here. One last thing we wanna do with this guide. So when the saw comes down for that last cut, it's gonna wanna do this. And there's not enough guide for the saw to rest on. So what I did was I cut a small block and I put that in there. So what we'll do is we'll get this, push it up, make it even with the guide up here, and then we'll clamp it down. One last tip, make sure you set the depth of your blade. You don't need it sticking all the way past the material. Just barely past it. It'll be plenty good in order to cut this. And it'll sometimes prevent chipping too if it has it just sitting just past it. All right, flipped it over, and there's the cut. But I will show you guys, there's one little tiny spot. See that piece of tape right there? So when I pulled this back, you can see there's a little tiny chip there. But what I'll do is I'll take a little like marker and touch it up with a little bit of black. You won't see it. But other than that spot, if I can get the camera to focus, it's pretty good. I'll show you guys too where I got that chip. I got a little tiny bit swirled right in here because of coming down on that cut, like I said. So, you know, when you got the saw and it's heavy, it's not easy to do. You know, I make mistakes, but what I'll do is I'll just do a light sand, a light file before I put the end on, and I bet you probably won't even notice that. All right, so there you go, guys. We got it done. But just a couple things to keep in mind. Take your time. Go really slow, measure twice, cut once, and make sure that you feel comfortable using the saw. If you don't feel comfortable using the saw, don't do it, hire somebody to do it. Don't forget, give me those thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, hit that bell for notifications so you know when the second part of the video comes out. Drop a comment in the comment section below, and we'll see you on the next one.